Liberal left-wing filmmaker Michael Moore was trending on Twitter yesterday because he's warning of a 2016 repeat. Now, what's actually interesting is, if you guys recall, Michael Moore accurately predicted that Trump was going to win at a time when nobody thought that Trump was going to win. Michael Moore had actually predicted the victory of Donald Trump. He was one of the few people to do so. You know what I mean? There was very few people to accurately predict that, and he was able to pick that one up. And he says enthusiasm for Trump is off the charts. Now, we're going to look at this. I'm going to break it down for you. He says, "Are you ready for a Trump victory? Are you mentally prepared to be outsmarted by Trump again? Do you find comfort in your certainty that there's no way Trump can win? Are you content with the trust you've placed in the DNC to pull this off? I'm warning you almost 10 weeks in advance. The enthusiasm level for the 60 million in Trump's base is off the charts. For Joe, not so much. Don't leave it to the Democrats to get rid of Trump. You have to get rid of Trump. We have to wake up every day for the next 67 days and make sure each of us are going to get 100 people out to vote. Act now." And he says that he wants to provide a reality check again, citing a CNN poll, which is kind of a fishy one. First of all, CNN polls are horribly inaccurate, really, really bad. But it's not even clear which one he's referring to, which one exactly he's talking about. But and then in this tweet, you can see here, he says, "Check this out." And it says, during the same week in August, but 4 years apart in 2016, Hillary was way ahead of Trump, but this past week in some swing states, Biden lead is less than what Hillary's was. You can't blame this one on the PO or Russia. This is on the candidate and party. Wake up. And so it has RCP averages August 24, 2016, Wisconsin, Clinton up 11.5. Pennsylvania, Clinton up 9.2, North Carolina 1.7, Florida 3.6, Michigan plus 8, Ohio, Clinton plus 4.8, and now it has Biden up 6.5 in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania 5.7 in Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Trump is plus 0.6, Florida, Biden is plus 5, Michigan, Biden is plus 6.7, Ohio, Biden plus 2.3. These are really good numbers for Joe Biden, by the way. If these numbers stand, most of these are outside of the margin of error, and those are what you want, and it would be really difficult to actually be able to win that. Now, I personally believe that Trump has almost a 0% chance of winning here, and I'll break it down for you as to why I believe that he has virtually no chance. When you go back and you look at Donald Trump's victory in 2016, when you look at it, you realize more and more that it was a miraculous win. It was an Aaron Rodgers Hail Mary. That's exactly what ended up happening in this race. Okay, this was not something that, was expected. And when you look at it, those three Rust Belt states that fell for Trump, right? His margin of victory is pretty small. So, I mean, if he loses Florida and like one of those Rust Belt states, although the Rust Belt states typically vote in waves, he loses. So those three Rust Belt states fall for him, and he takes Ohio and Florida, right? But if those three Rust Belt states, which are blue states, these are states that hadn't voted blue since Ronald Reagan in 1984, and those don't even count because Ronald Reagan won basically every state. So those don't even really count. Some of these go back to voting for Nixon was the last time that they went blue. These are blue states. These are called blue wall states. He won those three states by a combined 2 points in total. Okay, 2 points in total. So when you take that into account, and you take into account how lucky that victory was, how close it was, he won Florida by about 1.5 points. Okay, the only state that closely went in Hillary's favor was Minnesota. That was the only one. She won that by about 1.5 points, okay? And so that is a pretty close state, of course. You think about that, right? Then you think about how Hillary Clinton was such a horrible candidate, right? She had problems with her base, but most importantly, there's this idea somehow that Trump's base is what won him the election. That's total misnomer, totally false. Trump didn't win the election because of his base. Trump won the election because of double haters and independents. So you can't win your election solely off your base. That's not how politics works. You have to have those independents. And so when you break down the double haters in those polls, they actually went for Donald Trump over Hillary Clinton. But when you look at the polls of double haters now, they're going for Joe Biden over Donald Trump. Joe Biden's favorables are nothing like Hillary's favorables are. I think that Hillary had an unfavorable, obviously. I'm pretty sure Joe Biden actually has a favorable rating by a couple of points, by like 5 points or something like that. So they're not even on par with each other when it comes to the favorables. When you take into account the favorables, you take into account how horrible of a candidate Hillary was, you take into account the miraculous victory that it took for them to win. And also, another thing I want to say is these polls were all bullshit in 2016. They were totally wrong. And they seem to have corrected for those polling errors because in the primary, the polls seem to be pretty on the money, especially after Black Monday happened. Everything seemed to be, perfectly on the money when it came to results in states like Arizona and stuff like that. So polling seemed to actually be accurate. Now, when you go back to 2016, it was a totally different story. When you go back to 2016, remember Wisconsin the polls were massive for Hillary plus 15. She ended up losing that state. Same thing with Michigan. The polls were clearly fucked. Something was wrong completely, and they seem to have corrected that error. So it's stupid to look back at these polls. And it's actually a good thing to be up like 6 points and not 12. Because if it's up 12, it's probably an indication that it's fake, okay? It's like getting a pair of Yeezys for $20. They're probably fakes because why would they be so goddamn cheap? It doesn't make sense, right? Usually run like $300, $400. So it's probably fake. So you want to get a pair of Yeezys for maybe $250 instead of $300, typical price, rather than $20 because the $20 is probably fake Yeezys. So this is an indication that those leads are real. And Obama's lead, RCP average national, he was up like 0.2 or something like that. It's not about, you don't have to be leading by 10 points to win. You just need to be having these right margins of 6 points that are slightly outside of the margin of error. It's all about incumbency. Incumbency currently is not an advantage for Donald Trump. It's actually a negative for Donald Trump because of coronavirus, as well as the George Floyd protests, which those seem to be taking a different shift, but we'll see how that affects things because it seems more and more that as these protests go on, people are actually blaming Trump, saying, oh, this is Trump's America and we need to get him out, which is an interesting pathway that I actually didn't see coming. But can Michael Moore's, alarm bells that are going off, can those be harmful? No, I don't think so, because all you're doing is basically, getting more enthusiasm. Now, it's impossible for a person to get 100 people out to vote. You can maybe get 5 to 10, but that's probably the max you're going to get. 20 is complete max. So is there any harm in him doing this if you're coming at it from a perspective of trying to defeat Trump? I would say no. But there's no reason. Incumbency is such a negative. Joe Biden's favorables are much better than Hillary's are. Dude, there's not a single poll that has Joe Biden losing in Florida. Not even one. I have Joe Biden picking up Florida and all 3 Rust Belt states, but it's possible that he could even pick off Arizona or North Carolina. Maybe even North Carolina more than Arizona. So he's actually got a chance to pick up a couple other states. But Florida only went Trump by 1.5 points. Obama won it twice. There's a lot of old people there. Not Andrew Gillum, sorry, but Ron DeSantis' approval numbers have tanked in response to coronavirus. They're pretty, centrist over there in Florida. And so that's why I think that they're just going to take it. Joe Biden has not he's not losing a single poll in Florida. So I have him picking up Florida. All the indications seem to point to that. So I have him taking Florida and all 3 Rust Belt states. The only thing that could maybe change is the protests going on, but there doesn't appear to be any indication that that's going to change anything. In fact, it seems to be a catalyst for removing Donald Trump rather than voting him back in. So when anybody says that Trump's going to win, they don't really offer an analysis or a path to victory for him. They just say it just because they either want it to be true because they want to spite the DNC, or they're just find pride in being an edgester or whatever against neoliberals. There's no real analysis coming with it. When you look at all of the factors with this, it's virtually impossible for Donald Trump to win, considering all of the momentum that's against him. I mean, the caveat that's provided by everybody when it comes to voting for someone is whether or not there's a big catastrophe under their watch. And coronavirus is absolutely one of those. So, it's basically a wrap for him, essentially. This is almost impossible. He won 3 Rust Belt states by combined 2 points. You know what I mean? And most of that came from Pennsylvania. So, it was a miracle victory.